Marilyn Monroe. A name that echoes across decades: beauty, glamour, tragedy, and mystery. But behind the smile that enchanted millions was a story far more complex than the Hollywood fairy tale we're used to hearing. This is the journey of a girl named Norma Jeane, who rose from an unstable childhood and a series of heartbreaks to become the most recognizable face on Earth. And the same world that lifted her up ultimately contributed to her downfall. Today, we uncover Marilyn Monroe's rise and fall, the biography the world forgot. Before the diamonds, the red lips, and the flashing cameras, there was a little girl wandering through California's foster homes. Born on the 1st of June 1926 as Norma Jeane Mortensen, Marilyn never knew stability. Her mother, Gladys, struggled with severe mental illness, leaving Norma Jeane to bounce from one foster family to another, even spending time in an orphanage. Friends from the time said she was quiet, imaginative, and desperate for love. It's no wonder that later in life, she sought from the world the affection she never found at home. At 16 years old, to avoid being returned to the orphanage, she married her neighbor, James Dougherty. It wasn't love, it was survival. But destiny had other plans. While her husband served in the Pacific during World War II, Norma Jeane worked at a munitions factory. One day, a photographer visited the plant to capture women supporting the war effort, and he noticed something. That spark. That charm. That unteachable magic. Soon, she was posing for magazine covers, and people couldn't stop looking. When she signed her first film contract, the studio decided her name needed to change. Norma Jeane felt too ordinary. Inspired by Broadway star Marilyn Miller and her mother's maiden name, Monroe, she became Marilyn Monroe. And just like that, a legend was born. But Hollywood wasn't kind at first. Casting directors labeled her as too shy, too insecure, too fragile. What they didn't know was that she was preparing to prove every one of them wrong. Marilyn earned her early roles with perseverance, tiny parts in small films. Yet every time she appeared on screen, audiences leaned forward, wondering, who is that woman? Her big break came in 1950 with The Asphalt Jungle and All About Eve. Despite being given a few minutes of screen time, she stole every scene. By 1953, Marilyn Monroe was everywhere. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, How to Marry a Millionaire, Niagara, she became America's sweetheart. But with success came a heavy price. Marilyn was constantly sexualized by studios, typecast as the dumb blonde, and used as a marketing tool. Behind the curtain, she felt underestimated and trapped. Marilyn's image became unstoppable. The red lipstick, the blonde curls, the breathy voice, every part of her persona was carefully crafted. But what many people don't know is that Marilyn was highly intelligent. She read constantly, wrote poetry, and studied acting with dedication at the prestigious Actors Studio in New York. As she refined her craft, she fought for better roles and won. Her performance in Bus Stop shocked critics who expected nothing more than glamour. Marilyn Monroe was no longer just a pretty face. She was an artist, and she demanded respect. She even formed her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, a move virtually unheard of for a woman in the 1,950 seconds. But with artistic freedom came new pressures and new heartbreaks. Marilyn's love life was as famous as her films. But behind each high-profile marriage was a search for safety and acceptance. Joe DiMaggio, the baseball legend, adored her but couldn't handle her fame. Their marriage lasted only 9 months, ending partly due to jealousy and emotional tension. Then came Arthur Miller, the respected playwright. For a moment, Marilyn believed she'd found intellectual compatibility and emotional stability. But even that began to crumble. Marilyn longed to be loved for who she truly was, not the Marilyn Monroe on movie posters. At the same time, her dependence on sleeping pills grew. On set, she was frequently anxious, late, or exhausted. Some colleagues grew frustrated, others quietly worried about her. Her mental health, strained by fame and trauma, began to deteriorate. Marilyn wasn't just a star, she was a global phenomenon. She sang for the president. Her images sold magazines like nothing else. Crowds shut down entire streets just to catch a glimpse. But privately, she felt increasingly alone. Her marriage to Arthur Miller collapsed. Repeated miscarriages devastated her, and the constant pressure to be perfect Marilyn became unbearable. Hollywood didn't help. Studios pushed her harder. Tabloids followed her relentlessly. And powerful men tried to control her every move. Yet she kept smiling for the camera. In 1962, Marilyn was working on Something's Got to Give, and the production was a mess. Her health issues worsened. Her punctuality declined. She was fired, then rehired, then surrounded by headlines calling her unreliable and unstable. But many people behind the scenes believe Marilyn wasn't the problem. It was the world around her. She was trying to reclaim control of her life, signing new contracts, planning comebacks, reconnecting with Joe DiMaggio. But her mental state was fragile, and the scrutiny never stopped. Not from studios. Not from the press. Not from the public. On the 5th of August 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her Brentwood home at just 36 years old. The official cause? Probable suicide. But almost instantly, questions arose. Her phone records were wiped. Her housekeeper's story changed multiple times. Important evidence vanished or was never collected. Rumors of political connections, forbidden relationships, and cover-ups exploded. Whether her death was accidental, intentional, or something more sinister remains one of Hollywood's biggest mysteries. What we know for sure is this: Marilyn Monroe died alone, yet the world never looked away. Decades later, Marilyn Monroe remains a symbol of beauty, charm, and vulnerability, but also of the pressure that fame can create. Beyond the image, she was a survivor of childhood trauma, a woman who demanded respect in a male-dominated industry, a brilliant comedic actress, a cultural icon who transformed Hollywood forever. Her struggles opened conversations about mental health, exploitation, and the dark side of celebrity long before society was ready to hear them. Marilyn wasn't perfect, she was human. And maybe that's why her story still resonates. From Norma Jeane to Marilyn Monroe, from foster homes to worldwide fame, from a shy girl to a timeless legend. This was the rise and the tragic fall of a woman whose light was so bright, the world still feels it today. If you believe Marilyn's story should never be forgotten, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves classic Hollywood. And tell us in the comments, which celebrity biography should we cover next?